Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, it's a schus on the sixth day of Hanukkah, Tafshin Pei to finally be ready to at least begin the process of teaching the Sefer Ner Mitzvah V'Torah Or, Shaar HaEmunah of Shaar HaYichud, from Rav Dov Meir Shnuri, schus Yogan Aleinu, the Mittler Rebbe, the son of the Baal HaTanya, the second Rebbe of Chabad Lubavitch, and really the point of light that opens up the teachings of the Baal HaTanya and extends them into particularization of Bina so that we can grasp it. The work of the Mittler Rebbe, which we spoke about in some of the introductory shiurim that we gave on the Mittler Rebbe, but the Mittler Rebbe was referred to by the seventh Rebbe as Rechovas HaNahar. Rechovas HaNahar meaning the extension and the width as well as the length of the river. So it's not simply the emergence of a river which comes down from Chachma, which was the light of the Baal HaTanya, the Alter Rebbe, but ultimately, the light of the Mittler Rebbe was to be the Bina that's mamshich from the Chachma of the Baal HaTanya, so that it can go down into the Das of the Tzemach Tzedek and then continue on for generation to generation until the seventh Rebbe. And the Mittler Rebbe's entire orientation, as we'll see, is rooted around this process of Bina. Bina in the sense that Bina is understanding. Our moichin are Chachma, Bina, and Das. Chachma, Bina, and Das, the gematria are 620, which is the gematria of Keser. So ultimately, Chachma, Bina, and Das, the three properties of thinking and processing, are going to give us in their fullness an experience of the Keser itself. In Chabad, especially from the Baal HaTanya, we don't have an explicit expression of the teachings of Keser, at least in Sefer HaTanya or in Shaar HaYichud ve'emunah. There are hints to it in the 36th chapter of Tanya. There are hints to it in Chinuch Katan that reveals the connection between Safan Shel Beinanim and Shaar HaYichud ve'emunah of the Baal HaTanya. But nevertheless, Rav Chaim Vital didn't speak about the deepest teachings that his Rebbe, the Arizal, taught either. And the Baal HaTanya was Mishabeach Rav Chaim Vital for this, as Rav Aaron Halevi brings down in his introduction to Shaar HaYichud ve'emunah. And the Baal HaTanya saw a deep significance in concealing for the sake of revelation. Tzimtzum for the sake of Gilui. Yud, in fact, in the Baal HaTanya, rather than representing purely an expression from a Kadosh Baruch Hu, is actually the expression of Tzimtzum, meaning to say that we start with the element of Chachma and the element of Bittul b'Metzias, which is the heart of what the Baal HaTanya came to give us, but it doesn't start from the place of Keser in a revealed way. It only carries the light of Keser in a concealed way, because we start from Chachma, then we go to Bina, and then we go to Das. We're dealing with the embodied states of consciousness rather than this transcendent experience of something that rests beyond the capacity of thought, even though that's where Chachma, Bina, and Das are perpetually taking us, because Chachma, Bina, and Das in their totality reveal Keser. But nevertheless, we don't start with Keser. We start with Chachma, then we descend down into Bina, and then we bring out Das. This is the path of Chabad B'derech Klal. The Talmidim, Rav Aaron Halevi and Rav Yitzchak Isaac Hamler and Rav Hillel Parachers, we're going to see those students of the Baal HaTanya, of the Mittler Rebbe, of the Tzemach Tzedek, in spite of the fact that they were fundamentally rooted in the expression of the Torah of Chabad, by dint of the fact that they were not Nesiim, it gave them more access to speak on the level of Keser, which is why you see so much more of the expression of the Torah of Atik and Arich in the teachings of the students, Rav Aaron Halevi, Rav Yitzchak Isaac Hamler, and Rav Hillel Parachers, we're going to see. But generally speaking, the Hamshacha Satorah through the 7 generations of Nesiei Chabad does not necessarily give us a full description of the mechanisms of Keser and how to deal with it, as, for example, Rabbi Nachman or the Kamarna give us. In Chabad, we're dealing with Chachma, Bina, and Das. And then when you get to the Das, which is Das Tachton, the lower perspective of the unity of Chachma and Bina, you also come to understand that hidden within that lower Das is Das Elyon, is the higher level of Das, which brings us face to face with Keser. But on an external level, we start with Chachma, we go into Bina, and then from the unification of Chachma and Bina, the yichud of Abba ve'Ima that takes place in Shema Yisrael, we come to that place of Das, which is Gili, which is the Tzemach Tzedek. So we have the Baal HaTanya, the Admor HaEmsai, and the Tzemach Tzedek. The Admor HaEmsai, as the representation of Rechovas HaNahar, as the element of Bina, gives us access into that first stage of particularization that breaks open the original whole of Chachma and allows it to express itself in all of its various parts. In the realm of Chachma, which is the koyach ma, which is the ability of grasping that which rests beneath all things in its unified level, in that place of absolute bittul, in that world of atzilus, the realm of Chachma mevatel all concealment. There's no distinction, there's no distortion that is revealed. That's the realm of light, that's the realm of or, that's the realm of clarification and the lack of struggle. That's the light of the Baal HaTanya that he was Moser Nefesh to reveal. And then comes along Bina, which takes that original whole of Chachma and it forces it into the incubation process of severing itself into its composite parts so that each part can be understood in its isolation, as well as the various applications of all of the different parts in accordance with the width or the applicability of the idea across the spectrum of ideas, or the depth of the idea to descend down into the core of the idea, or the length of the idea, meaning how many mishalim or metaphors can be expressed in accordance with that singular idea. The realm of Bina is the factory, so to speak, of separation for the sake of the proliferation of individualized particular points that each and every one of them carry the irreducible message of Chachma. But the fact that Bina severs, at least at first glance, appears to be an act of severity and an act of constriction and an ounce and an instantiation of separation. That's why Chachma is this realm of unity, but Bina is the realm of separation. It's the Nun Sha'arei Bina, 50 gates of Bina. Gates of understanding. Understanding already implies a Havana Sadavar Mitoch Davar. Havana Sadavar Mitoch Davar, understanding one matter from the other. It doesn't operate anymore with that singular unity of the Yichud Ilah, which Chachma of the Baal HaTanya reveals. What it does is it's the understanding of Yichud Tata from within Yichud Ilah. It now enters into the territory of distinction for the sake of extending the parameters of the idea that could not have taken place unless the original unity of the idea underwent a certain concealment. The descent into Bina is a darkening of the light of Chachma so that the light of Chachma can now splinter and fragment apart and reveal the potency that it has within it, which is to express itself across the spectrum of innumerable particulars. And the work of Bina is to descend down into each and every one of those particular applications of that endless light of Chachma, so that every point that we descend down into, every shar, which appears to be so separate from all of the other shars, and it appears to bring us into the domain of multiplicity and separation and concealment, in the end, when we go through the process of Bina properly, and a person descends into the realm of Bina and separation to reveal the light of Chachma within there, where the Mittler Rebbe is coming to reveal that all he was doing was giving us an understanding of what his father, the Baal HaTanya, was really saying, as he himself explicitly states, that he was working with the osios of the Rav, he was working with the depth of the words that the Baal HaTanya gave over, as opposed to other students who were taking from the intimations of the Baal HaTanya. The Mittler Rebbe was drawing down the words of the Baal HaTanya and giving us the extension and the infinite movement of particular points that compose the wholes that the Baal HaTanya was conveying to us. The Baal HaTanya gave us buildings, and the Mittler Rebbe reveals to us the process and the electrical engineering and all of the construction and the details upon details upon details that go into creating that structure that appears to be a seamless unity, like the Baal HaTanya. And then the unity between the two of them is revealed in the Tzemach Tzedek, which is the capacity to go into the particularization of ideas. As anyone who learns the Tzemach Tzedek sees, its proliferation of details and makoros, but nevertheless, it also contains the radical light of Chachma in the sense that every particular detail that the Tzemach Tzedek is revealing is also conveying the remarkable light of the Baal HaTanya as well. So it's the yichud of Chachma and Bina. But the Baal HaTanya is Chachma and the Mittler Rebbe is going to be Bina, which is why most of the Svarim of the Mittler Rebbe are referred to by the name of Sha'arei. Sha'arei Ora, Sha'arei Yichud ve'emuna, Sha'arei Chinuch, Sha'arei Chachma, all of these different, Sha'arei Ora, all of the different Lashonos of the Mittler Rebbe's Torah is rooted in the element of Bina. Kuntras Hespa'alus, the famous writings of a tract on ecstasy of what it means to properly live with one's heart, where it creates a real understanding of how to apply the chachma of the Baal HaTanya into the heart and the experience of the heart in Chasidus. That's what Kuntras Hespa'alus was about. It was the famous argument for the sake of revelation between two friends who loved each other so deeply, two Talmidim, two lights of the Baal HaTanya, was the Mittler Rebbe and his best friend, Rav Aaron Halevi Meistreselia, the Baal Avodas Halevi, the Baal Shaar HaYichud ve'emuna, the Baal Sha'arei Avoda, the Tzaddik Yisod Olam, Rav Aaron Halevi, who came and created almost like a machlokas l'shem shamayim by way of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel in terms of how the Baal HaTanya's teachings should be expressed properly. As we know from the writings of the Rebbe Shlita, as well as his Talmud of Shmuel Ehrenfeld Shlita, the full expression of what's really going on at the heart of the machlokas, or the apparent machlokas between the Mittler Rebbe and Rav Aaron Halevi Meister Celia. But ultimately, that machlokas, that split that takes shape between the son of the Baal HaTanya and the Talmud Mufak of the Baal HaTanya, who was Rav Aaron Halevi, is ultimately about the two stages in which Bina reflects itself. Because the Baal HaTanya reveals to us Chachma, but then when Chachma descends down into Bina and the whole is forced to process itself into the particularization of parts, and that cool, calm, collected calmness of the mind descends down into the warmth and the fire burning desire of the heart. So one of two things can take place. That burning desire of the heart can express itself externally on the body, and it could force the body to reveal that intensity in polar opposite to the calmness of Chachma. Or on an innermost level, the calmness of Chachma can actually express itself within the ferocity of Bina by way of calmness itself. This was the machlokas on an external level with regards to hispa'alus gashmi, that whether when a person is in a state of divine contemplation and ecstasy, whether the body is meant to reflect any semblance of a change or not. It's known that Rav Aaron Halevi, who felt that when Chachma of the Baal HaTanya comes down directly into the heart of Bina, Bina is meant to express itself with its utmost ferocity and intensity, because Rav Aaron Halevi was holding on to that light of Keser, of Arich, that could only be Niskala by way of the Chitzonius of Bina and the intensification and the movement of the flesh itself and the unification of all that is in opposition to Chachma. That's what Rav Aaron Halevi's Torah reveals, and that's why on the level of Hispa'alus Gashmi, Rav Aaron Halevi felt that the Hiskashmius itself, the Yesh itself of the body, is the very receptacle in which the light of the Baal HaTanya, the light of Chachma, should be revealed, because ultimately it should go back to a light of Keser. The Mittler Rebbe, as the Nasi of Chabad, who is developing the traditions of the Maggid of Mezrich, who was giving us the light of the Baal Shem Tov, which could only come about by way of the youngest and the greatest of the Talmidim and the particular light of the Baal HaTanya. The Mittler Rebbe was conveying the osios of his father, not the intentionality behind the osios of his father, which the Talmud, Rav Aaron Halevi, was capable of discerning. The machshava behind the osios, like we see by the Torah's Chacham and his Rebbe, the Rashash, the Talmud has the ability to intuit a certain intentionality that is not revealed within the language of the teacher, but the Ben, the son, has really only a unique capacity to listen very closely to the letters of the father in order so that it should come down. This split between the Mittler Rebbe and Rav Aaron Halevi Meister Celia, the fact that the Tzaddik Yesod Olam, the Baal HaTanya, is going to have an expression of a Ben and a Talmud, and the two paths of Bina and the way that Chachma expresses itself in the heart is not symptomatic, God forbid, of some split at the heart of the Baal HaTanya's Torah, but rather Shner Or, the Rav Shner Zalman Meliadi, the Tzaddikim tell us, Shner is Shnei Or. There's two forms of light that the Baal HaTanya conveys. The depth of Chachma that the Baal HaTanya was conveying was strong enough to reveal itself in both the Chitzonius of Bina as well as the Pnimius of Bina. Rav Aaron Halevi drew it down into the Chitzonius of Bina, which was going to be Magala on the revealed element of Keser and the secret of Arachanpin. And the Mittler Rebbe was drawing down the Pnimius of Bina, which was going to express itself in a very different way. This unity between the Ben and the Talmud, the son and the student, which appears at first glance to be a machlokas, is ultimately something that the Baal HaTanya himself experienced, because we know that one of the things that made the Baal HaTanya unique in terms of the Chavraya Kadisha by the Maggid of Mezrich was that he learned B'chavrusa with Rav Avram Hamalach. Rav Avram Hamalach was the son of the Maggid. So when the Baal HaTanya was learning with the Maggid, he was getting the teachings like a student gets from the teacher, which is reflected in the teachings of Rav Aaron Halevi, who continues to draw the light of the Baal HaTanya down in Chitzonius Habina and the external level of Hispa'alus Halev, where there's an actual engagement with reality. And the Mittler Rebbe is in the model of the son who's learning the innermost das of the father, which is the secret of menucha at the heart of the change. And that's why with these two oiros, these best friends, who when the Mittler Rebbe would daven the Shem Membez, and he would say Ana B'Koach, and he would ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Na Gibor Dorshe Echutcha Kevavat Shamrim, please guard the seekers of your unity like the apple of your eye. He would have his kavana on Rav Aaron Halevi Meister his best friend from childhood and his partner in revealing the teachings of the Balatanya. But again, we see that the Torah of Chachma of the Balatanya expresses itself in accordance with the Kalim of Bina, which are going to be the Mittler Rebbe and Rav Aaron Halevi. So Kuntrus has Pa'alus, the tract on ecstasy, was written by the Mittler Rebbe to push back against this nature of the Hispa'alus, Haguf, and the intensification of the body encountering this world and the ecstasy that the body reveals. Instead of feeling that that was what was most necessary, the Mittler Rebbe was really trying to calm the spirit of Bina and bring it down into a very cool, calm, and collected intensification. The Mittler Rebbe was not a cool, calm, and collected person in the sense that he didn't have the fire of Bina, but it was such a depth of cool, calm, and collectedness that the fiery burning of Bina revealed itself without any external change. Like we know from the story of the Heilige Berditchever who came to the Shefa Brachos of the famous son of the Balatanya, who apparently knew the Shvile de Rekia, like the Shvilem of the town of Liadi, that he knew the pathways above, he knew the tachanot, he knew the stations above, just as one knows the streets below. And when the Kedushas Levi came to see what he would see by the Mittler Rebbe and benching, he didn't see anything at all. To the degree that he asked the Balatanya, how could this be that this is what the son of the Balatanya is, the one who knows Shvile de Nahardaya, he knows all of the wisdom and the pathways of above, just as one knows the pathways of below, and he shouldn't show any external movement or any shifting. And the Balatanya says to the Kedushas Levi, he says that I am the secret of Panemius of Chachma, and therefore you see his patlus by me sometimes. But my son, yes, he's Bina, but he's Panemius of Bina. He's the Panemius of the Lev. And in the Panemius HaLev, the Moyach is shalit on that Lev, because there's a Panemius HaMachshava that's shalit also on the Panemius HaLev. And in that place, in the calmness of the inner interiority, the movement and the intensity doesn't actually have to express itself in any externalized way. That's the secret of the Mittler Rebbe. But nevertheless, the Mittler Rebbe is the secret of Bina. It's the secret of intensity and separation. And this is what you see in Torah's Chaim. In the Torah of the Mittler Rebbe, you see so much more of an implication about severity and constriction and separation and tohu and esav and concealment and simsum and darkness and and a descent down into the marashchayra and the concealment of it all and the resistance that the individual feels in this world when trying to uncover the lights of godliness. And the Mittler Rebbe had a deep, keen awareness of the empathic needs of what his Talmidim and Hasidim are going through. Every one of the Mittler Rebbe's Sfarim opens up, almost every one of them opens up in the Hakdama with basically the recognition that the only way this book is going to work for you is if you need it to restore your soul. If you need it, if you want Margua Lenafshecha, if you're looking for a cool, calm, and collected place to find calmness of your spirit, as the Mittler Rebbe quotes in the name of his father, who quotes in the name of his teacher, the Magid, that he heard in Mezrich, that he heard in Mezrich, that EF Lahavin is Razi Dairaisa La'omkam La'amisam Ela Lamishi Yesh Bo Marish Chayrativis Hamushrash Bo Mina Uruv Hanikrat Sabrachin Kait Blashkin Ashkenaz Kamesha Kosav Bechazal Ein Moisin Merkava Ela Lamisha Liba Doi Bekirbo, as the Mittler Rebbe quotes in Kuntras's Palace, as well as in Shaar HaYichud, as we're going to see, that it's nearly impossible for one to have a true understanding and grasp of the innermost teachings of Torah unless they have this particular vessel of this natural tendency towards a certain melancholic spirit, which is referred to as a tzabrachenkite, which is rooted in them from their childhood, meaning to say, based on the humor theory of emotions, it's not the symptom of some trauma, but rather it's reflective of the nature of the soul itself. It's not a sad type of sadness, but it's a sad form of happiness that allows the self in its intensity to become a cleave for more hashra aselikus, for more calmness. But there's a tzabrachenkite, there's a liba doig bekirbo that is necessary. There's a worry at the heart of the individual, because that's what the Shaar Bina are. The Shaar Bina are speaking to the heart, and the heart is a split thing, and it's broken open into two, as the Kotzker Rebbe said, that there's nothing as whole as a broken heart, because the heart is the place where unity enters into apparent disunity, so that the disunity of the heart can then come about to reveal the unity of the mind with even more intensity. So in spite of the fact that the Mittler Rebbe doesn't take the intensity of Bina as far as Rav Aaron Halevi does on an external level, nevertheless, there's a severity at the heart of the Mittler Rebbe's Torah that is necessary in order to properly understand why he's bringing us down into the very particulars of the particulars of the particulars in order so that we should understand that each and every iteration of a vessel, which by definition means that there's a tzimtzum, which by definition means that it's not the whole, which by definition means that it's not the ultimate revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinitude, why we have to continuously and consistently descend back down into these particularized vessels so that we can come to reveal the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu even more. The descent down into Bina is the secret of Bina Miklal Ta'ah, that if you have understanding, the implication is that you've already made a mistake. It's a secondary perspective. It's the heart. The heart hears twice. The mind tries to hold on to that singular unity that the Baal HaTanya was working with, that chachma. But when it's applied to the heart itself, it enters into hispoinenus bepratius. Hispoinenus is Bina. It's a language of Bina, of understanding, of descending down into the depth of the singular idea so that I can pick up each and every one of these pieces, where each and every piece can be shown to be containing the entire whole, and that I can use each and every part of the whole to gain access point to the whole, that there's no place in the entire Seder Hishtalshelus from the beginning to the end that if I look at it and I gaze at it deeply and then I enter into it properly, then I'm going to find everything, because each and every part is a gateway to the all. And the more and more we learn about the parts, the more we proliferate the revelation of the greatness of the all. Again, the goal is never to get stuck in the pratim. The goal is never to get stuck in the disintegration of it all. But when we allow ourselves to descend into the disintegration with the deeply held belief upon our healthy forms of integration that we've received from the level of Chachma, which is the Baal HaTanya, and all that came before him, so then we could descend down into the realm of Bina and not be so afraid that we're going to lose sight of the klal, because now we go down into the pratim while holding on to the klal to reveal how truly profound the light of the klal is. This is the secret of Rav Meir Permishlan. We've spoken about the story numerous times. Rav Meir Permishlan was walking down an icy hill, and many people were walking down around him, and they were slip sliding and they were falling. And someone said, "How is it that you walk so confidently?" And he said that when a person attaches themselves above, they don't have to fear falling down here below. And ultimately, this is one of the general klalim when it comes to the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, that we start with Baruch Sha'amar V'haya Ha'olam. We start with a radical affirmation of goodness and the radical affirmation of the Yichud Ilah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu's radical indivisible unity and infinite presence in all things. And once we properly understand the Yichud Ilah and the secret of Shaar HaYichud ve'emuna of the Baal HaTanya, and how everything is everywhere revealing the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, only then, when we're tethered to the Chachma of the Baal HaTanya, can we descend down into the territory of Bina of the Mittler Rebbe, into the Kli of Bina of the Mittler Rebbe, where the Shnei Or, the Or Choizer and the Or Yasher, Pnimius HaChachma, Pnimius Bina, and Chitzonius Bina, the Mittler Rebbe and Rav Aaron Halevi are going to be able to reveal the full potency of that Chachma. But it's only with holding on to Chachma, meaning to say it's only with the radical affirmation of the all at the heart of each and every moment of descending into the part, then I'm going to get stuck in the part. And getting stuck in the part is not an option for us, because to get stuck in the part means to get stuck in Yichud Tata without the animating form of Yichud Ilah, of a lower unity without a higher unity, which would mean a sense of self without an absolute sense of self-nullification at the very same point, in the secret of Ani va'ayin b'vasachas. It's only with the preparation of entering into the klal of Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. That is first things first. First postulate is that everything is the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and like a child knows when they say HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I need you, or Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is truly everywhere. That is the first radical affirmation of Yichud Ilah, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. When we're holding on that, and we're holding on to the Dalit of Echad, the big Dalit of Echad that gives us the time to pay attention, to latch ourselves on to that Dalit of Echad that then descends down to become the worlds of separation and the different stages of unity down here below, then we can trust ourselves. Then we can feel confident in our descent down into the parts and the particularization and the Geruros and the Tzimtzum of Bina, because now we're armed with that illuminative light of Chachma. We're not falling into Tzibrachenkite, God forbid, without Simcha. We have a deep, radical affirmation of Simcha, and then we draw that Simcha down into the Kalim of Tzibrachenkite to reveal. The Kalim of Tzibrachenkite are also the vessels that can be revealed to be the deepest form of Simcha, as Rabbi Nachman describes in Torah 23 in volume 2, that the goal is not only to dance b'simcha, but to dance b'simcha to the degree that you can draw the Marash Chayra into the circle as well. And so what we're going to be seeing in Shaar HaYichud is we're going to be seeing the Mittler Rebbe's description of the map of reality. the map of existence. The avoida for the Mittler Rebbe, drawing down from his father, the Baal HaTanya, is the avoida of hisboinenus. Hisboinenus is the contemplation of divine ideals, the contemplation of the way in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu expresses himself from an unfathomable level of unity down into an unfathomable level of distortion and separation. Ultimately, the entirety of Pnimiyas HaTorah, the entirety of Torah's Moshe, through the lens of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, through the lens of Rabbeinu HaArizal, through the lens of Rabbeinu HaBaal Shem Tov, through the lens of the Giluim of the Talmidim of the Baal Shem Tov, Rabbeinu, Rabbi Nachman, Nachal Novei Mar Kol Chachma, the or of Chabad, the Sari Alafim and the Sari Meos, the deep unification between Chabad and Breslov, that's clearly the unification that's necessary for the end of days, when it's shown that ultimately those are the two options that a person have, Chabad or Breslov, Chutz La'aretz, Eretz Yisrael. These are the two places. They're deeply connected and fundamentally bound at every ounce of the possibility of being bound up together, the Torah of Breslov and the Torah of Chabad. As Rav Avram ben Rav Nachman says on the first teaching of Likutei Moharan, Ki Isha Yisraeli tzarich tamid lihistakel b'haseichel shel kol davar, that the Jewish individual has to perpetually gaze into the depth of the wisdom that exists within each and everything. Mikan loimdim shetzrichim lilmod Tanya. From here we see that one must study Tanya. There's a deep and fundamental historical, spiritual, and yet unrevealed bond between the Torah of Breslov and the Torah of Chabad Hasidus. But ultimately, all of Pnimiyas HaTorah, from the beginning to the end, is all coming to describe the impossible passageway from the radical infinitude of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the finite nature of reality and graspability and consciousness and the notion of avodah l'tzarach kavoah, that we have a role to play in our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that HaKadosh Baruch Hu desires and almost allows us to feel as if he needs the work from down here below. The secret of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Nishmas Yisrael, the secret of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Torah, of the infinite and the finite, of the tzimtzum and the kav, of the emergence from a radical, impossible to even think about nature of infinitude that boggles the mind to the degree that all I can do is negate the possibility of even negating it, the shlila sashlila, which is the secret of mechuyev and metzias, that all that exists is a Kadosh Baruch Hu, l'mala mitam v'das. That's the Shaar HaEmunah that's written before Shaar HaYichud. And then we have to try and figure out how all of that reality of the radical unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu stims and makes sense with the radical proliferation of separation and concealment and hastara and difficulty and encounter with reality that this world conveys to us. We seem to be straddled between two impossible opposites, and ultimately Pnimiyas HaTorah and the Torah writ large has come to bridge that gap. The Torah is the bridge between that gap, but the bridging of that gap is the secret unity between the infinite and the finite. This is what we refer to as the Seder Hishtalshelus. The Seder Hishtalshelus is the great chain of being that emerges from the infinite recesses of the infinite mind, so to speak, at the moment that the original thought of creation arose within the unfathomable desire of the infinite creator as a result of looking out towards the future pleasure, so to speak, that would emerge from the actions that we as the Jewish people would engage with in acts of concealment, revealing the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what gave Hashem the original desire, so to speak, to want to create the world. That all of these processes are what we refer to as the Seder Hishtalshelus, from that original inception point, and even that point before the possibility of an inception point, down to the lowest possible iteration, down not only to the worlds of Atzilus, but to the worlds of Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya, and not only the worlds of Asiya, but the Asiya of Asiya, and the Malchus of Asiya, that descends down into the territory of darkness, and the Biyah, the Klipa, Chas v'Shalom, and the secret of Elef Yoimin, the whole, the historic consciousness of mundane reality, where it is not yet revealed that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running everything, the dir b'tachtonim that the Baal HaTanya describes, where a person can theoretically conceive of themselves as being separate and apart from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that place of cheshach hakafulu mechupal and the hastara b'toich hastara, from all the way to the tippy top, down to the very, very bottom, that entire extended process is the Seder HaHishtalshelus. What comes before the Seder Hishtalshelus, we have no accessibility to, and no accessibility of even conceiving of what accessibility would look like. And what comes after is what we anticipate is Mashiach Tzidkenu, and the Leshem Shabbat does a very good job, obviously, in charting the historic ascensions that will be taking place after our notion of revealed history ends. But the Seder Hishtalshelus, for our understanding, is the bridge between the infinite and the finite, and ultimately the secret how it neither collapses the infinite nor undoes the finite. It would be too easy to say everything is infinite, the finite is not real. That is not what the Seder Hishtalshelus teaches us. The Seder Hishtalshelus teaches us how to hold both the infinite and the finite revelation of the infinite in two separate hands at the very same point to allow them to unify themselves together. Hasidus is not, God forbid, coming to deny the existence of reality. It's coming to reorient us to the very nature of what existence means. Obviously, it's not separate from godliness, but obviously it exists, because if it doesn't exist, then what's with the Torah, what's with the mitzvahs, and what's with everything that we're doing? Obviously, it exists. It exists by way of not really being something that's absolutely real, but that unrealness of it is actually real, and the secret that's how HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to convey it. It's a mamish kavyachol. It's a literal figurative thing. It's a figuratively literal thing. It's the secret of emes and emes la'amisa and yichad ilah and yichad tata and mitzido and mitzidenu, all of the different teachings that Hasidus comes to teach us. And each and every mimer that any of the Nesiim gave us, especially the Talmidim, is not only an idea that was written in the past and it was said once and then it got written down in order to preserve the words of those tzaddikim. Adrabah ibcha mastaber, it's a Torah Chaim that they've given us. And as we know, when a person studies words intensely, what they're doing is not only are they encountering the text itself, but they're encountering the neshamos that gave us those texts. When it comes to ma'amarim, and when it comes to the secrets of how HaKadosh Baruch Hu allows his infinite light to descend down into levels of constriction and concealment so that it can be revealed in an even further way down here in the particularity of it all, each and every mimer that describes the innumerable particularities of the Seder Hishtalshelus, which are all operating within and from within the teachings of the Arizal and those who preceded the Arizal and were contained within the lights of the Arizal, every mimer that sits on the shelves, all of the volumes upon volumes of Torah Chasidus, ultimately they are portals. If a person is choosing to learn a mimer from Tafshin Nun Aleph on Parsha Shmini, by entering into Parsha Shmini and Tafshin Nun Aleph, we're entering into a portal which that Nasi, that Tzaddik brought down, and it rests hidden within that mimer. So when a person reads that mimer, it's the technological awakening of that same orientation to the Seder Hishtalshelus. And if a person travels and follows the map and the maze of that mimer, so they're going to encounter a hiskalus of a likus, they're going to encounter a newfound awareness of godliness, which brings down more calmness, more comfort, more joy, more simplicity, more acceptance, more emuna, more yichud, more yira, more dvekus, and it brings us closer and closer to the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Seder Hishtalshelus is what is being described in Shaar HaYichud. The innumerable particulars that take place in between the original light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu prior to the Tzimtzum as we understand it, down to the lowest place, which is us. And what the Mittler Rebbe wants to do in Shaar HaYichud is go through each and every stop along the way, not simply to give us a picture, but also to help us understand that even though the general picture is what's most important, nevertheless, you lose out if you do not have a precise grasp of the particular details. The Rebbe Rayatz writes in Likutei Diburim that Shaar HaYichud is like a map of the tachanot. It's a map of all of the stops along the way from the highest point of Seder Hishtalshelus down to the lowest point. And it gives a person the access point, each tachana v'tachana. And it used to be that each and every chassid would have to know the tachanot. Each and every chassid would have to know the stations along the path from the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu down to the concealed place in which we find ourselves. But then something changed and permission was granted that people could go in even without knowledge of the maps, and they could partake of the medicine. But nevertheless, the responsibility to know the map, the responsibility to know the Seder Hishtalshelus, that we can properly enter into his baininess and into his spoidedus and to dive into HaKadosh Baruch Hu properly with a fundamental awareness of what above is and what below is, and how it's possible for above and below to operate in unison, and how each one gives shape to the other, and what the infinite processes are in between those territories, and how in truth all they are simple principles that are perpetually repeating themselves over and over with new shames, with new shemos and new names ascribed to them, but nevertheless it's a singular system that's taking shape over and over from above to below. And this is what all the Mekubalim are describing to us. This is what Shaar HaYichud is about. Now Shaar HaYichud, the Kuntras HaHezboinenus, is ultimately meant to then be applied into Kuntras HaHezpa'alus. Kuntras HaHezpa'alus is the track on ecstasy, is to how to actually engage HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how to contemplate these matters, not just to know what these things mean, but to live them, not just to allow them to be maps, but rather to allow the map to become the territory itself, to allow myself to reveal the map within myself, so that I can uncover the various parts of myself that are in truth built exactly in accordance to and reflective of, in the most potent way imaginable, of the Seder Hishtalshelus itself. That we, as human beings, as neshama shenasat to be tahirahi, which was the goal of the Balatanya, to be makarev this Torah of the seichel into the heart and into the body itself, as we're going to see la'aseh lavo, when the body becomes the teacher, as Hasidus Chabad teaches us. We need to understand how not just to know these ideas, we need to know the ideas, we have to draw these ideas down. We can't draw the ideas down without knowing the ideas, but the goal of knowing these ideas is ultimately to draw them down. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to go through Shaar HaYichud and Mirz Hashem. Now, in Shaar HaYichud, there is an amazing commentary of Rav Hillel Paracher. Rav Hillel Paracher, who was a Talmud and a Rebbe in his own right, but he was a Talmud of the Mittler Rebbe and then the Tzemach Tzedek. Rav Hillel Paracher, I saw that somebody said that Tafshin Pei Hey is Tehei Shnas Pelech Harimon. Pelech Harimon are the Svarim of Rav Hillel Paracher. And Tzaddikim in our generation who have done so much to extend the light of Rav Hillel Paracher, this should be a year of the Torah of Rav Hillel Paracher coming out more and more. Tehei Shnas Pelech Harimon. Rav Hillel Paracher was the Lumdus of Hasidus. He was not an Admor, but so he had full accessibility to the levels of Keser and the Torah of the Arizal without needing to provide something different to Hasidim. He was giving us the depth of Torah Hasidus, and the levels that he speaks of are the highest levels imaginable. The Torah of Hillel Paracher, the Torah of the Likutei Biurim on Shaar HaYichud brings everything that the Mittler Rebbe is describing to us as the neurological map of the mind and its process of contemplating the ontological map of how HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to create the world. That Rav Hillel Paracher comes to remind us how all of this is deeply rooted in the Torah of the Arizal, and that when we're learning Hasidus, we're also learning the Arizal, and that we cannot separate between the Arizal and the Torah of Hasidus, and Rahman al-Itzlan may Haidaisa that seeks to separate the two of them. Yes, Hasidus is ultimately revealing a new level of Torah Arizal that was not revealed within the Torah of the Arizal itself, because when the Rebbe Rashab says in the name of the Baal HaTanya that Kabbalah is a parish on Hasidus, it means ultimately that Kabbalah gives us Atzilus, Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya, and Hasidus comes to give us access to Adam Kadmon. And ultimately, all of the Torah of Atzilus, Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya is coming to give us a proper understanding of what the Torah of Adam Kadmon is. But Adam Kadmon is a Torah of the Arizal that cannot be fully accessed until the Torah of Hasidus came to give us full accessibility to the Torah of Adam Kadmon, just as Leshem Sheba V'Chaloma did at the very same time, which is why the hisnagdus between the Leshem and the Mittler Rebbe is nothing other than Galus HaTorah, and the fact that they're two Nevi'im who are speaking from a very same place, operating in two different frames. But nevertheless, all of these inyanim of accessing the light of the Prate Pratim of the Arizal through the lens of Hasidus is the Iker Giloi, to be miyached the Torah of Kabbalah with the Torah of Hasidus, which is why the Rebbe Yartzeit is on the same day as the Rashash, because the ultimate unity between Panimius HaKabbalah and Panimius HaChasidus is fundamental, because without Panimius HaKabbalah, a person will learn Chasidus and they'll think, okay, I reached the highest level and I've reached the highest level, there's nothing more. What Kabbalah teaches us in the secret of the Seder Hishtalshelus is that no, the highest level is just the lowest level of the next level ad infinitum. So with that endlessness that Kabbalah teaches us, expressed into the finite system that Hasidus is giving us, so we have the deepest unity imaginable of infinite light in finite vessels, which gives us the perpetual possibility of experiencing it over and over. Shaar HaYichud is a unique technology of a sefer that the Mittler Rebbe brought down. The Rebbe Maharash said that the Mittler Rebbe had such a profound way of writing and directly attaching himself to the hearts and soul of each of his Hasidim. Sometimes the Mittler Rebbe would give an entire sefer because of an alcoholic in his kehila who was struggling, and the Mittler Rebbe would give Shari Tshuva and write it in order to describe how a person can recover. And it's not only about that individual, it then becomes Rosh Hashanah, but the Mittler Rebbe had a deep, intense, empathic connectivity to each of his Hasidim, as we know from the stories that the Mittler Rebbe couldn't read Kvittel until he fully encountered the concealment that Chassid was experiencing and the remarkable stories that come about by that. And the Mittler Rebbe's introductions to his farm, you see such a radical empathy that comes from the pneumius of the heart itself, from that place of Bina. But the Mittler Rebbe would write svarim for different Hasidim. He would prescribe different teachings for different individual needs. But there were three svarim, the Maharash says, and it's brought down in Hayom Yom. There were three svarim that the Maharash says the Mittler Rebbe wrote for everybody. And they were the openings of Hasidus. So there's Shaar HaYichud, which is basically the basic structure, the substructure of what a person needs in order to be misboinin. It's the Seder Hishtalshelus. If you know Shaar HaYichud, you have the map upon which to now engage in the process of hisboininus, which was Kuntras HaSpalus. And then there was Sha'arei Oira of Chanukah and Purim, which reveal the hisboininus, the depth of the hisboininus on the tzimtzum and the concealment and the darkness, which ultimately is going to reveal more. So Shaar HaYichud is mamish an accessible sefer, and we're going to go slow. And what we're going to do is we're going to, when we finish an os, we're going to go to the Os of Rav Hillel Paracher and learn that inside as well. Now, the Balatanya gave us the Nun Gimel Prakim in Tanya, and the Mittler Rebbe in Shaar HaYichud, which is printed in addition to Shaar HaEmuna. Shaar HaEmuna is about Inyane Emuna and Pesach and Matzah. And then Shaar HaYichud comes once the Mittler Rebbe has described all of the fundamentals of Emunah. Now he wants to give us the particular map that we need in order to go through this process. So there's Shaar HaEmuna and Shaar HaYichud, which is Ner Mitzvah v'Torah, or Shaar HaEmuna v'Shaar HaYichud, which is ultimately the Mittler Rebbe's extension of his father's teachings. The Tanya has two parts to it. The Tanya has Safran Shel Beinanim, and it has Shaar HaYichud ve'Emunah. Safran Shel Beinanim is the place of his boinanus, of bina, of intensity, of struggle, of his pa'alus, of movement, of fighting with the nefesh of Bahamas. Shaar HaYichud ve'Emunah is the place where the Balatanya reveals to us the unity of all things, and that place of Chachma. Chinuch Katan is the secret wedge of Kesser that holds the two of them together. But for our purposes, there's Tanya, which is the Nefesh of Bahamas and the Bina, and then there's the Shaar HaYichud ve'Emunah, which is going to be the Chachma and the book of the Tzadikim. So the Mittler Rebbe also has Kuntras HaSpa'alus, which is going to correspond to the Safran Shel Beinanim, the Torah of the Balatanya with regards to the battle between the Nefesh of Bahamas and the Nefesh of Elkus, what it means to be a soul in a body. That's Kuntras HaSpa'alus, corresponding to Sefer Shel Tanya. And we also have Shaar HaEmuna v'Shaar HaYichud, which corresponds to Shaar HaYichud ve'Emunah of the Bal HaTanya, which explains the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Surprisingly, or I'm not sure what to make of it. Just like there are 53 chapters in Tanya, there's 53 or 54 chapters in Shaar HaYichud, meaning almost as if to say that the Shaar HaYichud is connected to the Safran Shel Beinanim itself, but I don't know enough to try and darshan on that. But ultimately, the Mittler Rebbe responds to the two svarim of his father, the Safran Shel Tanya, the Safran Shel Beinanim, and the Shaar HaYichud ve'Emunah, which is a book of tzaddikim. The Mittler Rebbe gives us the Kuntras HaSpalus and the Kuntras HaSboinanus. Kuntras HaSpalus is corresponding to the body and the Nefesh of Bahamas of Tanya, and the Kuntras HaSboinanus, which is Shaar HaYichud, is giving us access to the Shaar HaYichud ve'Emunah of the Balatanya, which is contemplation of divine unity, as well as Rav Aaron Halevi. We see Rav Aaron Halevi and Mr. Celia on the level of Chitzonius Habina also gives us a fundamental reflection of his Rebbe. He gives us Sha'arei Avoida, which is basically an extension of the Tanya itself, describing tefillah and the engagement with the body and the rectification of Gashmias, and Sha'arei Yichud ve'Emunah, which is the radical unity that the Avodas Halevi was being masbir as well. So we see the extension of the Balatanya, the Shnei Or, or Yashar and the Or Choizer of the Balatanya expresses itself as well in the Or Yashar and the Or Choizer of the son and the Talmud, of the Mittler Rebbe and Rav Aaron Halevi. We can say that for the Mittler Rebbe, the Safran Shel Beinanim correspondent, which is Kuntras HaSpalus, is about moving from below back up above. That's the Or Choizer. And the Or Yashar is going to be the Hisboinus and Shaar HaYichud, where you start from the top to the bottom. And that's the reflection of the two Oros of Shner Zalman within his son, the Mittler Rebbe. And then you're also going to have those two forms of Oros, Or Yashar and Or Choizer, expressed within the Talmud, Rav Aaron Halevi, that in Shari Avoida, which is from below to above, is going to be the secret of the Or Choizer, the reverberating light that comes about from concealment and extends up above, as well as the unified light, which is going to be expressed in Shaar HaYichud ve'Emunah of Rav Aaron Halevi, which is going to be the Or Yashar of Rav Shner Zalman. In the secret that it's the Talmidim of the Tzaddik who extend the light of the Tzaddik and reveal the light of the Tzaddik in an even more potent way, and how it's ultimately the Talmidim of the Tzaddik and the Hamshacha of the Tzaddik and the Hishtoikakus and the yearning that we have towards the Gilui of the light of these Tzaddikim that we're going to create ourselves to be vessels to receive the light of these tzaddikim. And in fact, without our yearning for that light to come down, then the tzaddikim wouldn't really have the light to give. It's dependent upon the hishtoikakus of the Talmud, which is why in this place of Shaar HaYichud, it's so important that we have a biur of Rav Hillel Paracher. So we have the son of the Balatanya, and then we have a Talmud who comes along and gives commentary on what the son of the tzaddik is saying, which is ultimately the unity between the tzaddik, the son of the tzaddik, and the Talmud of the tzaddik, and the yichud of the Av, and the Ben and Talmud ke'echad, as Rabbi Nachman describes. Okay, Beseder. So right now, we're going to simply look at the very opening page, of Shaar HaYichud, Ve'amuna, Chelak Sheni, Me Sefer Ner Mitzvah V'Torah Or, Hanikra Shaar HaYichud. So this is the opening page to the Sefer, which we're going to now begin to learn together. Sheyiyeh kol ish asher chenenu Hashem, das lahaskil ulahavin beyichud elikus. That this book, this gate of unity, is there so that each person who HaKadosh Baruch Hu has blessed with knowledge, with das, as well as the ability to have haskala, which is the capacity to contemplate, ulahavin, and to understand the yichud of godliness. Meaning to say, this book is written for anybody who has the ability to enter in and begin to contemplate the secrets of unity. And where are these secrets of unity going to be expressed? They're going to be expressed in the yichud ilah as well as in the yichud tata, the higher unity and the lower unity. That each person who has the gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to have the desire to know and to understand the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, meaning to say how it's possible that Hashem is above and below at once, the infinite and the finite, both the Yichud Ilah and the Yichud Tata, a person who wants to understand the higher level of unity as well as the lower level of unity, the Klal and the Prat, the Pasuk Rishon Shema Yisrael U Bashkamalu, to understand the Yichud Ilah of Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and the Yichud Tata of Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam Va'ed, Ish Lefi Havanas Libo V'daiso She'azreinu Hashem. Each and every person in accordance with the understanding of their own heart and knowledge that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given to them and that Hashem will help them with. This is a fundamental klal in every sefer from the Mittler Rebbe, and it comes from the Balatanya itself, and it's rooted in the Hakdama of the Balatanya to Sefer Shaltanya, and how the secret of a sefer becoming something that can serve the role as yichidus, and how there can be a singular truth that conveys itself in accordance with each and every heart's desire. That kol chad lefum shira delay. When it comes to Bina, the recognition is that we're no longer dealing with a radical and absolute objective reality and truth. We're dealing with the subjective processing of those truths in accordance with the individualized truth of the subjective framework of that individual person who is fundamentally and singularly unique throughout the entire history of existence. That each person will have the ability of grasping it in accordance with their own understanding, and each person will be correct. David l'shlomo. Kikol levavos doiresh Hashem. Each and every heart is searching out HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Each heart searches out Hashem in its own way. Im tidrashenu yimtzelecha. And if you search it out and you descend down into the details, you'll come to find it. Yimtzelecha can be a remez to the 50 sha'arim of Bina. Ve'im v'chulei. V'ksiv v'tuchan libois Hashem. And the pasuk also says that the hearts are going to be prepared to understand Hashem. V'amr David. And David HaMelech says, B'chol libi darashticha. With my entire heart, with my Bina, with both parts of my heart, I have searched him out. Drisha, what is this drisha? What does it mean to be doirish Hashem in our hearts? Hainu ba'ayin haseichel shebelev, in the eye of the intellect that exists within the heart, in the chachma that's misgala itself within Bina itself, the chacham bebina, the emergence of chachma down into Bina, the ein haseichel, the cool, calm, collected reflection of his zbaininess, of his staklus panimi, but within the heart itself. Mikarev v'leiv amuk amuk, from the depths of the heart. Mechvod kedushas admor nishmasu begin zemorim. That's the daf shar. And now what we'll read is the Hakdama. This Hakdama is taken from the original Hakdama to Shaar HaYichud, to Shaar HaEmunah v'Yichud, and it's printed over here at the beginning of Shaar HaYichud in the end, where the Mittler Rebbe is going to describe for us the essential nature of this kuntris. Muhus hakuntris halaz. The essence of this kuntris, a remez that I'm going to say over here is halaz, can be representative of Etzem Haluz, the bare minimum of what a person has to contemplate in order to remain connected to the Nakuda of Yichud in the secret of the Etzem Haluz, which is very much connected to the light of Yitzchak and the light of Bina. Muhus HaKintros Halaz, that the essence of this kuntras, medaber be'inyan hayichud elokus b'chol prat, b'chol prat v'prat. So here the Mittler Rebbe is already explaining exactly what is going to be revealed, as we know from the Gra and Safed Niusa, that the introduction to the Sefer contains the essence of the Sefer. So over here, the Mittler Rebbe is giving us exactly what it is. The Yichud of Elikus, which is the Yichud Ilah, b'chol prat v'prat, in each and every particularized point, which is already a stira minei ubei. How can you have the unity of God and b'chol prat v'prat, but that's going to be the unity? This is exactly what the Rashash and Torah's Chacham are coming to teach us in the Torah of the Arizal as well as the Leshem, what the Aleshem is doing for the Arizal as well. Chol prat v'prat, to see the light of unity in each and every part. Seder Hishtalshelus, the Eser Sviros, the Atzilus Bria Yetzira v'Asiya, which emerge in the process of the unfolding Seder Hishtalshelus, that bridge from above down below, which express themselves in the 10 Sviros of the worlds of Atzilus Bria Yetzira and Asiya, and all of the partsufim that those 10 Sviros make up, and the separation between each of those worlds, especially between Atzilus and Bria Yetzira and Asiya. Kitzer mikol asher yuchal ish lakariv el haseichel b'hasaga milubeshes v'nitfeses b'moyach b'leiv b'chol pratei sidrei hishtalshelus metzimsum harishon ad sof olam ha'asiya. Now over here is just an amazing, amazing line. And it is a truncation and a quintessential secretion of the depth of everything that one can possibly come to contemplate and draw close in their minds by way of actual grasping it in a way that it can be congealed and engarbed with the mind and the heart, all of the processes of the Seder Hishtalshelus. It is the kitzer. The secret of a kitzer is the quintessential drop without losing any of the essence itself. From all that a person can possibly draw close to the intellect by way of grasp, and engarbing it and drawing it down into the graspability of the mind and the heart with regards to all of the particularized details of the order of the unfolding of the worlds, from the original tzimtzum that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is magal himself with, the tzimtzum hamavhil, where the possibility of thought begins, even by thought by way of what can't be thought, ad soif olam ha'asiyah, to the lowest part imaginable, which is where we find ourselves. V'hu nikra b'shem kuntras ha'hezboinus, and it's referred to as the tract on contemplation. Kuntras ha'hezboinus, the Indian of Bina, sherabim mishtoikikim sheyavu b'tfus, that so many people are yearning that it should come into a proper printing. Now again, this is historic as well as symbolic. The Bala Sulam, when his Talmidim would ask for more writings, he said, where is the hishtoikikus? When it comes to Bina, there has to be a hargasha of that chisaron, of that marash chayra hativus hamushosh bo minaurav, that needs to be felt in order to awaken the hishtoikikus to all of these pratim, because it's only a person who finds himself stuck in the pratim that is going to begin to yearn back towards the klal, and when there's a hishtoikikus back towards the klal, then a person is roi to be receiving the light of the particulars so that they can reveal the klal and the general principle within the particulars. Sheyavu b'tfus, so many people want it to be printed. Ki rabu bo hataus, there's been so many mistakes about it. Again, bina miklal de ta'a, bina always contains within itself taus. We find this in the Sidurei Harashash as well, lahavdil, that there's so many different mahaduros and different printings. Every printing and every error inherent within printing is part and process of the Golus HaTorah and the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light through the Torah of the Tzaddikim. So the fact that there's a printing history, and Chabad goes to great lengths at ensuring a clear history of the printing reality. There were so many mistakes, shonos, with different printings and reprintings. I'm certain, bitachon, bina, that place of the sha'arei bina, that place of confidence, bitchu b'Hashem ad de ad, Sheyakablu l'ratzon Hashem, that hint that within Bina a person will come to the ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is Keser, but that ultimately this will be pleasing in the eyes of Hashem, and a person will come close to Hashem, and that my intention, my kavnasi haritzuya l'toivas kol ish doirish aleikim be'emesu betamim. This is ultimately my only desire, to benefit each person who is earnestly seeking out HaKadosh Baruch Hu with an ounce of truth and simplicity. V'yedinuni l'schus b'chol asher lo yuchsher be'enei chachamim, and anything that appears off should be judged favorably. Mistakes, again, associated with Bina. Shagios mi, the secret of Yavin, mi Yavin, Ministaris Nakeni, Vashem Yarin, Karen Yisrael, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu should elevate the Shchinta Kadisha, the status of Klal Yisrael, V'yair Einehem B'or Hashem, and our eyes, the Einei HaSeichel, and the heart should be illuminated, and it should awaken up the Einei Chachamim, which is the light of Chachma, B'or Hashem, or Oilam, the light of eternity, B'chein, B'chesed, B'rachamim, B'chai HaNeshama, B'chai HaGuf, in the world of the soul as well as in the world of the body, V'yanaltam, V'yanasim, Kol Yemei Oilam Ad Bias HaGoyel. And these words should be contemplated until the arrival of the Redeemer. Be'ezras Hashem, we're going to go. We'll see how often we can do this, hopefully twice a week. We'll go into the words and we'll try and keep the commentary short, but clarification clear. And Be'ezras Hashem, we'll enter into the Shaar HaYichud together.